This is a Louie T Network exclusive.
Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Draft Zone.
Who else could it be? Me, Dorman, Louie T. Welcome, you are in the lab room, of course. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on the 2016 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2016 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out. And I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. So, we will get a score for each and every single player selected in X said team's draft. Add all of those scores up, divide by the number of selections made by that team in the draft, apply bonuses and penalties when necessary, and that will yield us a final overall grade for that team's draft. We'll move on to the next team in the process, picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there. You're in total control. It's the up format, the you pick format in full effect. Simply be the first, not the second, not the third, not the 23rd, not the 93rd, not the, oh, please do my team next person, but the first person to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: next and the team you like to see next. Look, I don't care how you phrase it, as long as the word next and the team you want to see next is in that comment in your first, and that team hasn't been done yet, that team will be next up in the series. So it sounds simple enough, right? That's because it is, man. And so this was a photo finish to get this one up, and I love it. I love the competition. I love everybody trying to be first to get their team up next, or some team they want to see. I absolutely love it. So keep it coming. The Arizona Cardinals are up next. And this was a really intriguing draft by Steve Keim and company. And what you'll find with Steve Keim and his group out there in Arizona is that you can tell he relies heavily upon his scouting department. Not a lot of teams, and I'm not saying other teams don't, because generally speaking, most of these teams do exactly that, if not all of them. But them in particular, they don't really get the guys that go to these big schools. As you'll see in this draft, they go off the beaten path a little bit to go find and unearth that hidden gem, like a John Brown out of Pittsburgh State. You know, that's the kind of guy that they're looking for. And you'll see in this draft, they continue down that path. And it's a draft that is based heavily off of hunches. It's based heavily off of upside. And it's based off of really studying the tape and hoping that the skills that they saw on tape translates over to the NFL despite playing against lesser competition. Let's jump into the Arizona Cardinals 2016 NFL Draft. See red, be red. Now, first round, 29th overall pick, Ole Miss defensive lineman Robert Nkemdiche is the selection, one of the most polarizing figures in the 2016 NFL Draft. Until Laramie Tunsil took him off the hook, he was the story of the first round in terms of the guy that you really wanted to stay away from because of the off-the-field issues. Heavily talented, probably a top 10 talent in this draft, but again, the production in college did not scream top 10 player and pick. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I was excited watching this tape. I don't know about a lot of you out there. I was a guy that got really excited watching Robert Nkemdiche play. You put on a number of different tapes, you'll see a guy out there wreaking havoc. The one that everybody likes to talk about is the Alabama tape. I thought he was good against Florida. I thought he was good in a number of games that I saw him playing. And you see why this guy was heralded and why this guy was looked upon as a top 10 talent. He's a very gifted football player. I just always felt like if he could just land in the right situation, if he could just find a way to get into the right locker room around the right players in the right organization, this guy can flourish. And to me, there were two places that stood out like a sore thumb, maybe three. New England always jumps out as a place that if you can get there, you're going to find a way to conform and get the job done. But I didn't want him to go there. I said I wanted him to go either to Seattle or I wanted to see him go to Arizona. Those were the two places. Now, I didn't think he was going to go to Arizona because I didn't think they were going to get an opportunity because I thought Seattle was going to take him. Well, they traded back and allowed him to be there on the board. And I still feel like if he was there when Seattle picked that second time around after trading back to allow the Denver Broncos to come up, I still felt like they were going to take him. Well, the Arizona Cardinals said, thanks for the opportunity. We'll take it from here. And they take, to me, one of the most talented players in this entire draft class, in Robert Nkemdiche. And so this is a guy that I look at and I say, forget about the off-the-field issues for a second. Just look based solely at the play on the field and the athleticism and the talent that this guy was blessed with. You won't find many other players in this draft that can do the things that Robert Nkemdiche can. And so I'm not going to break them down. Obviously, I've already done that in the Draft Prospects 101 series. All I'm going to say is they got an absolute steal here at the end of the first round with a guy that should have been drafted in the top 10. But because of some off-the-field transgressions and because of some of the vibes that teams got from just sitting down and talking to this young man, and I get it. I totally get it. I was not pleased with him after the combine, listening to him talk and some of the things that he said. I was not happy with Robert Nkemdiche, and I feel like some of the teams were scared away just by sitting down and talking to this kid. Had he said the right things, had they gotten a good vibe from him, he probably would have went higher in the draft. But because some of the things that they saw on tape and had heard from other people, talking to people that were around him every day on an everyday basis, and some of the stories that had come out, and then talking to him himself, it all kind of jived together and made them come up with some preconceived notions that they may have had going in, and it was reconfirmed just sitting down and talking to him. Either way, I love this guy's game, and I love his talent, and I love the fact that he's in Arizona. I think this is a absolute no doubt about it. You can put him on the board! Yes! A home run in the first round for the Arizona Cardinals. Robert Nkemdiche is in the perfect spot. They need pressure on the quarterback. This guy's not only going to deliver some pressure on the quarterback, but he's also going to be a menace in the run game. I think with the acquisition of Chandler Jones in Arizona and his presence now, you add a guy like Robert Nkemdiche to this line that you've been building for it seems like years now, and you have some solid pieces now. I think this is all starting to fall in place for the Arizona Cardinals up front, which is where they need to get better and get pressure on the quarterback. You move on to the third round, 92nd pick overall. Texas A&M cornerback Brandon Williams is the selection. And I talked about going off of upside, going off of potential in the future. This is one of those picks here in the third round. 5'11", 197 pounds. Here's a dynamic athlete, okay? Dynamic athleticism is the first pro. 4'3", 940. You're talking about a guy sub 4'40", can absolutely fly. And I'll give you some background on this kid a little bit later on, but it's a guy that can move around on the football field. And it was funny because you watch him on the field and you see him moving so quickly, getting into the backfield. They try to throw a hitch, he'd run up and grab the receiver before he could even, kind of try to get some run after the catch. And you can see him shooting in and knifing in and making some tackles and doing some things. You can see him with a little bit of burst, getting to the football. So you saw dynamic athleticism. This was the guy that was at the combine that did the whole song and dance when he did his 40, he did all of this and got down on his knees, and he said his brother or cousin and somebody told him to do all of that, so he did it. And Deion said, man, you better run fast. You're doing all of these shenanigans. And he did. He ran, he blazed it. So this is a guy, you can see he has a little bit of character, and he's, to me, a really dynamic athlete. Explosive quickness, I just kind of touched on that already. Very quick twitch. You can see it when he moves. There's some sudden bursts of quickness, jolts of energy that you see out of this guy when he's on the football field. He moves very quickly from point A to point B. So you see some explosiveness, and you'll understand why that explosiveness is there a little bit later on when I get into his background a little bit. But he plants and drives well. Also is another pro for me. I think, again, some fine tuning here and there with some of the things that I've seen from him already. And I think this guy has a chance to really be a good cornerback. And that was one of the positions that worried me for the Arizona Cardinals after last year. I felt like they needed to do something to upgrade that position. Look, I like Justin Bethel just like everyone else does. I don't like Justin Bethel as a starting cornerback. And you saw teams take advantage of Justin Bethel late in the season, especially in the playoffs. Green Bay went after him vigorously. The the Carolina Panthers tore him to shreds in the NFC Championship game. I just think that they need to upgrade that position. And this is a guy that could potentially be someone that in the future takes over that spot for Justin Bethel. And maybe Justin Bethel is just a good backup and a great special teams guy. Maybe you could put him in the slot, I don't know, but I really like what Brandon Williams could potentially do for this football team down the road. Aggressive in the run game. I talked about him coming up and being aggressive and tackling, and that's something that I always love to see in corners. You don't see it enough. A lot of these guys have a mentality or I don't have to tackle. You know, if a guy comes my way, I might push him out of bounds. I might try to cut him, but I really don't want to get involved. If you guys up front could handle that, I'd be really appreciative if you didn't make me have to come in here and jump in the fray. A lot of these corners really don't want to be physical. This is a guy that you don't worry about that with. He's a very physical football player, willing to jump in the fray, willing to come up and run support and help his teammates out. A lot of those runs to the edge, a lot of those hitches and bubble screens, not jumping off on Brandon Williams' side. He's being very aggressive with the blocker in front of him. He's also shooting those blocks, getting into the backfield, and getting ball carriers on the ground. He doesn't miss very often either. Upside is the final pro, and this is a guy that has tremendous upside in my mind. I look at him and I say, I understand why he's a third-round selection. Still got a lot of questions, but I understand if this guy works out, this will be more than a good football player and a good pick for them in the third round. They'll reap the benefits of this selection if he turns out to be the guy that they project him to be. The upside is definitely there, and I understand why they did what they did. You go to his cons, he's raw. 1 year at the cornerback position, and let me give you a little bit of background on him now. This is a guy that out of high school was one of the most highly sought after running back recruits in the country. Oklahoma was able to get his services, and so they felt really good about Brandon Williams and what he would be for them in their backfield. Some situations back at home, including he already had a kid that he wanted to be closer to, and so just wasn't working out for him the way he wanted it to at Oklahoma. Felt like he needed to be back at home, closer to his family, and so he migrates back to Texas A&M, and he comes back on that campus, does some solid work at the running back position, but something's not right. They move him over to the cornerback position, and they had some other guys come in that they were feeling good about, so they moved Brandon Williams to the cornerback position, and he only had 1 year of starting at cornerback. And it was funny because you'd see him in the game at the beginning, and as the drive would progress and they would get closer and closer to the end zone, they'd take him out of the game. In tight situations, they take him out of the game. He wasn't on the football field, so you could tell they trusted him early on in the game. They trusted him early on in possessions, but as they got closer and closer to giving up scores, they didn't want him on the football field, or as they got later and later in the ball game, things got tight. They didn't trust him, being a guy that was very naive and young at the position. So very raw, a guy that you're gonna have to work with. You see a lot of things that you like, a lot of potential in this guy, but he's still learning the position. So there's a lot here that you're going to have to work with in Brandon Williams. But all the rest of my cons all have to do with him being raw. And so these are all things that are really more of question marks than they are cons, except for this first one. Limited exposure. Again, didn't play much. Again, you're talking about a guy that started every game at Texas A&M at the cornerback position this year, but he was off the field quite often. I would watch entire games where this guy wouldn't see the field, for the final 5 or 6 plays of possessions. As teams got closer and closer to the end zone, he'd be off the field. Or you get deeper and deeper later and later into the ball game, he's not on the field. He'd usually be on the field to start the possession, but again, as they got closer and closer to the end zone, you would not see Brandon Williams on the field. Ball skills. I didn't see this guy get targeted very often. So you question whether he has ball skills or not. I saw him make more tackles than I did him more plays on the football. So I question, does this guy have ball skills or not? When you're a running back, that doesn't necessarily mean you can catch the football. So I'm eager to see if this guy has ball skills or not. I may have to go back and consult my combine notes and see if I wrote down anything about Brandon Williams as a guy that could catch the football. But I didn't really see him attack the ball in coverage very often because they didn't throw it his way very often. And when they did, he wasn't in a position to make a play on the football. So that's something that I need to know. I don't really know the answer to that right now. And adjustment, how does he make this adjustment from college running back, 1-year starter at cornerback to NFL cornerback? It's a really huge leap. The athletes are much better. They're much more technically and fundamentally sound. How does this guy adjust from 1 year at cornerback to now NFL cornerback? It's a big leap, and it's a big ask of a guy that hasn't done it before, essentially until last year. So we'll see what happens with Brandon Williams. I understand why the Cardinals made this selection. If this guy pans out, he will pay them back dividends tenfold. But until then, I got questions. You know how I am when I've got questions and I don't have answers. In the third round, 92nd pick overall, Texas A&M cornerback Brandon Williams for me is a double. Again, I think this guy is highly talented. I see all of the different skills and tools that they see in him, which made him a third round selection in their eyes. I just need to see more, and I just need to have some questions answered that I don't have the answers to right now. You move on to the fourth round, 128th pick. Missouri center Evan Boehm is the selection, 6'2", 309 pounds. Tough, gritty interior offensive lineman. His tape was pretty fun to watch, I must say. Offensive lineman tape can be very, very off-putting sometimes. It's very monotonous. A lot of technical things. You're looking at these guys in the trenches. It's not a lot of fun a lot of times, except when you get guys like this who just win all the time. It just makes it a lot easier to stomach and watch. Physical at the point of attack. This guy's driving dudes off the football. I mean, he's really winning at the line of scrimmage. It's funny because there are certain places that seem like they're factories when you talk about offensive linemen, whether it's Missouri or Wisconsin. You always feel like you can go there, get a really quality offensive lineman. Notre Dame is another place that seems to churn out really good offensive linemen. And so this is a guy that comes from Missouri, and you've seen good, solid football players come from Missouri over the last few years into the league, whether it's Justin Brent or Mitch Morse. These guys have come in and been really solid contributors to their football team. And I look at Evan Boehm and I see another one of these guys that's going to come in out of that Missouri pipeline and be a really solid football player. More athletic than meets the eye. Here's a guy that I looked at him and I said, okay, he's not going to be much of an athlete. And I was wrong. This is a guy that can get to the second level. That's another a pro, so I'll go ahead and lump that in. He can get to the second level with ease. And when he gets to the second level, he's not one of these guys that's just out in space and lost. He's looking for somebody to block, and he'll go in and he'll take the guy out. And he's a physical guy, has a nasty disposition. He's throwing guys on the ground. He's pancaking them, a little extra syrup on top. And so there's a lot to like there with his athleticism. I saw him pull a couple of times, a couple of sip blocks where he's blocking out on the edge. A lot of good things out of Evan Boehm. And there's a couple of times where he's up in the screen game and he's going and he's getting linebackers and safeties and corners and mollywopping them. And so there's a lot there with Evan Boehm in terms of athleticism, which to me is one of his better traits that's really a secret for him that I don't think a lot of people have actually unearthed yet, but they'll find out that this guy's a really solid athlete as well. Technically sound, and this is what you get from Missouri offensive linemen a lot of times, really fundamentally sound, good footwork, good hand placement, good leverage, good base, all of those things that make up a quality offensive lineman. You get that with Missouri offensive linemen, and you see it here with Evan Boehm. Good on a double team, which helps him get out to the second level, which I talked about already. Really solid on that double team, and he does a good job of helping that guard and then getting to the second level, getting to that linebacker, getting that kick out block. So that's something that I think he excels at as well. So you move on from there to his cons. His size and shorter arms are the biggest things you look at with Evan Bain. Here's a guy that's 6'2". I actually thought that he was so good. He was so fundamentally sound. I saw so few flaws with this guy that I said to myself, he probably has the versatility to play, all three interior offensive line positions. But then I look at his size. He's got less than 32-inch arms. And I said to myself, I don't know if teams would be comfortable with this guy playing anything other than center, just because of his lack of size and lack of arm length. But here's a guy that I look at and I say, man, he has a chance to be a dominant center in this league. I look at him and he's got all the traits, all the characteristics, all the qualities of a guy that can come in, start for you day one, and really hit the ground running. I really feel good about Evan Bain and his game. Damn, that rhyme. Too quick to commit on the double team is the final con. I mean, I'm nitpicking here, man. I mean, there wasn't a lot here to really to downgrade him for, but the one thing that did somewhat annoy me was off the snap, he would predetermine where he was going to help on the double team. And sometimes you just gotta wait it out, take a couple steps back, look and see, keep your head on a swivel, see which one of your guys is struggling with their guy, and then you go help. And he would predetermine before the snap, I'm going to help my left guard. And the right guard is getting bowled back into the lap of the quarterback. Well, the left guard was handling business. He didn't need your help. You go over here now, and all of a sudden, your right guard is getting destroyed on this play, and you're over here double teaming the left guard and the defensive tackle on this side, and your other guy needed help. So sometimes I think he's too quick to commit on a double team instead of just waiting it out and kind of seeing who needs some help. Maybe your tackle is getting destroyed and you need to get over there and help him push that guy around the quarterback to create that pocket so that he can step up. Either way, I'm nitpicking. This was a guy that had some clean tape, man. It was fun to watch. In the fourth round, the rare triple for Evan Bain, 128th pick overall. Missouri center Evan Bain is a triple. Absolutely love what he brings to the table. I think this is a guy that can come in and right away help you on the interior of your offensive line. One of those unsung heroes, a guy that won't get a lot of the credit, but he'll come in and he'll upgrade your offensive line immediately in the fourth round. Fifth round selection, 167th pick, Midwestern State safety, Marquis Christian is the selection. 5'10", 196-pound safety. I talked about Steve Kahn and his group going out and actually trying to unearth gems. Here's an example of that. Tremendous athlete here is the first pro, Marquis Christian, to me. And first of all, never, ever trust a man with two first names. All right, just know that. But 4.46 speed. This guy can run, man. Tremendous athlete. You see it. I think that was the first thing that jumped out at me just watching him on the football field was the next pro. Outstanding burst and closing speed, man. The amount of distance that this guy covers in a short period of time is eye-popping. He's a guy that is sideline to sideline, tremendous range, can run from the hash to the other hash, can line up in some single high safety sets and run. And like I said, sideline to sideline, he's got all that coverage. There's one hit that reminds me of the Carl Joseph hit in the Oklahoma game where the receiver is catching the football and he arrives there. Upon arrival of the football, Marquis Christian gets there and absolutely destroys the wide receiver. I think the receiver saw him coming and actually dropped the football before he got there, but either way, he said, hey, I ran this far, I'm gonna just go ahead and light you up anyway, man. And so this guy covers so much ground. The burst is so explosive. He runs through ball carriers. It is fun to watch when you see a guy, and you know my mantra, you know my motto for smaller school guys, man. If you're gonna go to a small school, dominate, man. You know the one rule. I don't have any other rule than just dominate, man. You want to make it to the league. You want to prove that you're the best of the best. Dominate, okay? So what? You go to North, you go to Midwestern State. Dominate, okay? You're there, you might as well take care of business while you're there. That's what he did at school. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's a fearless hitter. That's the next pro. I love when guys are willing to sell out for the good of the team, put their body on the line. Football is a physical sport. And it's a mentality when you see guys going up and hitting, especially when you're 196 pounds. We're not talking about a 215-pound safety. We're not talking about a 205 pounds. We're talking about a guy less than 2 bills over here, and he's going out and he's laying the lumber on guys. Physical presence. He's a fearless hitter. He will put his body on the line, go and light a guy up, and that to me is a mentality, is a mindset, because a lot of guys, they're not looking to go and lay the lumber on a football player. They're not looking to drive this ball carrier a yard back. They're not looking to come up and hit guys. You see a lot of these safeties, they don't want any part of physicality. They don't want any part of the physical nature of the football game. They much rather make a play on the football. They much rather show up on SportsCenter with a shoulder and not a form wrap-up tackle. This guy's doing it all. So he's a fearless hitter, and I think there's a really good niche that he can carve out for himself at the next level. He's a capable blitzer. So again, this guy reminds me so much of Carl Joseph. It's not even funny. Similar size, similar capabilities, just on a much smaller scale. If this guy would have went to, Oklahoma, if this guy would have went to a bigger school, if this guy was at Penn State, this guy was at some SEC school, Texas A&M or Auburn, you're probably talking about a guy that goes in the second round. You're talking about a guy that comes off the board relatively quickly, but because he went to Midwestern State, you're talking about a guy that's sitting here on the board in the 5th round. But I see a lot of the same qualities, the same versatility. You're talking about a guy that can blitz. You're talking about a guy that, and the versatility is his next pro. You're talking about a guy that can play free safety, strong safety, come down in the box, hit you in the mouth, but can play 30 yards away from the line of scrimmage and range sideline to sideline and make plays on the football. You're seeing a guy that I saw in man-to-man coverage a couple of times. I got a question about that a little bit later on, but I'm seeing him against tight ends that are bigger than him go up, knock the football away. So you're talking about a guy that has a lot of capabilities to drop over the slot and do a lot of the things that Carl Joseph was asked to do at West Virginia and do it well. So I feel like there are a lot of similarities here between him and Marquis Christian, and I just feel like if this guy was more exposed to the fans and the consciousness of everyone else, he would have been a higher draft pick, because I think this is one of those hidden gems that the Cardinals are looking to unearth in this draft. Special teams value. This is a guy that with that kind of athleticism, physicality, those things, he's a guy you put on gunner and you just ask him to go down there and make a play, and he can, so you get some special teams value there. And finally, he was the Cliff Harris Award winner. So what that means is, he played in Division II. What that means is it's given to the best small school defensive player in the nation. So you're talking about over 500 different candidates for this award. And after the wreckage and after they sort through all of the different players that played at smaller schools, he was the guy that was last standing and was the one to receive the Cliff Harris Award. And that is a prestigious award for a guy playing at a D2 school. And I must say, man, that is a hell of an honor, because you're talking about a bunch of guys that are playing at a small school that are up for this award, and he was the one that actually won it. So that tells you all you need to know about the talent that this guy possesses. You go to his cons, his size is something that you look at 5'10". I think he can stand to gain another 5 to 10 pounds, and he probably will once he gets to the league and get up over 200 pounds. But this is a guy that at 5'10", 196, with the way he plays the game, you ask yourself, can he stand up to the punishment and the physicality of the NFL and the rigors of this game? You see a lot of these smaller safeties come in, and the one that always comes to everyone's mind is Bob Sanders. Now again, Bob Sanders is like 5'8", and Bob Sanders is like 195. But Bob can never stay healthy, even though he was a physical presence when he was on the football field. Can you stay healthy? And I think he can. And he hasn't shown me anything otherwise, so I'm on board. But again, that's always something that you ask yourself when you see a guy his stature throwing his body around the way that he does. Level of competition, that's always something you bring up when a guy doesn't play at the D1 level, doesn't play FCS, FBS. So you always ask that question. I'm not a big proponent. If you can play football, you can play football at any level. Sometimes the level of competition might be an initial shock, but guys, get over there. At the end of the day, once you step on the football field and you're playing amongst your peers, it's just football. And I think at the end of the day, you throw that stuff out the window. But there is a different speed to the game. There's a different level of skill to the game when you come up. So it is something that is worth talking about, but I don't really put a lot of stock into that at the end of the day. How good is he in man-to-man coverage is the last con, and it's really more of a question that I have. I saw him in man-to-man coverage a couple of times, defending some tight ends, making some plays on the football, but it wasn't very often. A lot more of him in zone, a lot more of him approaching the line of scrimmage and being a physical force. A lot of him, some things, blitzing and getting to the quarterback and getting into the backfield, but not a lot of man-to-man coverage. So that's the only question, because I think they see him as another Tyrann Mathieu, a guy that is so versatile that you can do a number of things with him. You can ask him to play 40 yards away from the line of scrimmage. You can ask him to come up and be a physical presence around line of scrimmage, and then you can ask him to drop over the slot and run with some of these receivers and tight ends, and I think they see that in him. And last year when Tyrann Mathieu went down, so did the Cardinals' chances of winning the Super Bowl, because he was such an integral part of their defense. And so they feel like if you can get another one of these types of guys that can come in and be extremely versatile and do a number of things on the football field, we'll be in a much better position. So that's what I see him as, a guy that is a nice chess piece for them defensively. We'll see what James Betcher and company are able to do with Marquis Christian in the 5th round, 167th pick, Midwestern State safety. Marquis Christian, for me, is a triple. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names, but I'll tell you what, man, awfully impressive, if I may say so myself. We'll see if that transition from small school safety to NFL safety is a seamless one for Marquis Christian or not. You go to the next 5th round pick, 170th overall, Harvard offensive tackle Cole Toner. And again, anytime you're talking about a tackle from Harvard, it's always fun to go and watch these guys play, because there's always this preconceived notion that these guys they're scholars, they're not tough guys, and what is he gonna do? He's from Harvard. But Cole Toner was out there putting in some work. 6'5", 306 pounds, good length, 33-inch arms. He got 33 and some change inch arms, so he's got some really good length on him. Able to mirror defenders really well. I thought he did a really good job of keeping the guy that he was blocking in front of him. Now, there were some times where he was beaten. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but for the most part, I thought he did a good job of keeping that defender in front of him and making sure that he wasn't able to get to the quarterback. Gets to the second level with ease, and didn't think he would be as good an athlete as he was, but he was moving a little bit. Now, I'm not saying he was the greatest athlete in the world. He's not going to wow you with his burst or his quickness or his 40 time or any of that stuff, but I did see a guy with really good above average functional movement. So he was able to get to that second level, get a kick out block for the running back, or when the quarterback decided to tuck it and run, Cole Toner was out there blocking for him. So this is a guy that I feel like can get to that second level, get to that next wave of defenders, and get a body on a body. Anchors well, and you saw repeatedly the player in front of him, and the tape that I got to watch was against Yale. You saw him getting bowled back a little bit, but he anchored down, arched that back. Guy was in front of him with that one-arm power drive, and he would move him a little bit, but at some point, Cole Toner would get his balance, get that base, sit down, and stop that guy from being able to push him back any further. So he anchors well, and he recovers solidly as well. Here's a guy that I saw beat, 1 or 2 plays, but he was able to recover and get back into play and push that end around the quarterback, allow the quarterback to step up in the pocket, whether he decided to run or step up and make a strong throw from the pocket. Cole Toner gave him that opportunity by recovering and pushing that defender around the quarterback. You go to his cons, trouble with elite quickness. It's a question, not an actual con. I don't know if he's going to struggle with elite quickness or not. It seems like it. But the quick moves that I saw that defensive end give him got him around Cole Toner. Now the question then is, if this guy's Robert Kendiche, he's probably just going to beat him. Like, this guy would beat him, but then he couldn't finish. Cole Toner would get back into play and push him around the quarterback. if Robert Kimdiche goes one-on-one with this guy, beats him with some quickness off the snap, I don't think Cole Toner is getting back in this play and pushing him around the quarterback. I think he's just going to get beaten to the quarterback, and he's going to either have to hold or he's giving up a sack or serious pressure. So I think elite quickness might be able to beat him, but I'm not sure because, I didn't see him losing enough to be able to make that assertion. But I think there's an opportunity there for this guy to be beaten by some quickness off the edge. You also look at long arm defenders will be a problem. Now, this is not a question. I'm making this assertion because the guy in front of him at Yale was giving him that long arm of the law, giving him that one-arm pile drive, and he was doing some work, but he just wasn't strong enough to finish the bull rush with it. And if you get a guy like a Chandler Jones who's really strong, wiry strong, and has those long vines for arms, and he gets into the chest of Cole Toner, it's a wrap. He's going to take him, put him on skates, drive him into the quarterback, I think. So I feel like that's something else he'll need to clean up. Don't really know what the Cardinals are looking at Cole Toner as. Are they going to kick him inside the guard? Are they going to leave him at tackle? I think if he can come in and show them that he can play just about anywhere, it's going to heighten his chances of making this roster. The more you can do, the better off you are as an offensive lineman. We all know that. So we'll see what Cole Toner is and what their plan for him is at the next level. 5th round, 170th pick. Harvard tackle Cole Toner for me is a double. We'll see if the Harvard product can come in and play some solid football for the Arizona Cardinals. And finally, rounding out their draft in the 6th round, 205th pick overall, Southeastern Louisiana cornerback Harlan Miller is the selection. 6 foot, 182-pound corner, feisty, confident defender. This is a guy, you see him on the field, a lot of swag, man. He's dripping and oozing with swag. He thinks he's the best player on the football field. You can look at him and tell that he feels like there's nobody on this field better than me. And again, at the cornerback position, that's one of those positions you need to feel that way when you're on the football field. Good movement skills. He's a 4.57 guy, so he's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not a blazer, but it's a good enough speed for a guy out there with his length and some of the abilities that he brings to the table that you may be able to get this guy to come in and perform for you. Solid length, and I think that also coupled with his athleticism doesn't mean he has to be the fastest guy. When you have some of the movement skills that he has and you add in the length that he brings to the table, it more than makes up for some of the speed that he's lacking at the cornerback position. Ball skills, 11 career interceptions, so he can make some plays on the football. Anytime you put a guy back there on punts, you feel comfortable with him fielding punts. That means he's got good hands, good hand-eye coordination. So those 11 career interceptions means that this guy can go make some plays on the football. Even though I did see him drop one that I thought he should have caught, this is a guy that can make some plays on the football. Willing tackler. Now at 182 pounds, always remember, there's a difference between a short tackler or the ability to tackle and a willing tackler. Again, tackling is a mindset. You gotta want to tackle. This guy wants to tackle. Now, that being said, at 182 pounds, who's afraid of this guy when he comes up and he's looking to get you down on the ground? Not many people were afraid of this guy. In fact, a lot of receivers would pull his card at the line of scrimmage because this Harlan Miller, I would say, he was a dude that was getting up in people's face, deleting the airspace. He was right here. I mean, literally, if he would have taken another half a step, he would have been offsides. That's how close he was to receivers at the line of scrimmage, right here in their grill. So receivers would come off the line of scrimmage, they would come off the ball, and they would absolutely give him a serious two-hand chuck, boom, and drive him back as they were blocking. So that 182-pound frame, sometimes I saw him a lot of times come up, want to tackle, and just fly and bounce off a dude. I mean, 182 pounds isn't scaring anybody. This is one of the few times I could actually look at a dude and say, I know I'm stronger than you. You know what I mean? I'm a 6 foot guy, about $185, but I know I'm stronger. I'm physically stronger than Harlan Miller. I can tell you that for sure. And I'll talk about why I know that as a fact a little bit later on. But this guy is willing to tackle, and that's the bottom line. The mentality is there. He wants to tackle, which, again, as long as you want to do it, we're on the same page. Special teams value, okay? I talked about him being a punt returner. This is a guy that you probably can put on special teams, to run down, make some things happen, but his special teams value is he can help you in a return game if you're looking for that. We'll see. Cardinals have already got a number of guys with some blazing speed on their football team. he wouldn't be a guy that would be my first choice to put back on punts or kickoffs. But then again, sometimes it's not all about speed. Joshua Cribbs for years was one of the better return men in the league, and he was not a blazer by any stretch of the imagination. So not all the time is it always based upon speed. Sometimes it's about craftiness and the ability to get up the field and make some things happen and make guys miss. And we'll see if that's something that the Cardinals look to explore with Harlan Miller. Cons. Eyes and size is the first con. His eyes will get him in trouble. He's one of those guys, very over-aggressive. That's the next con, and I'll jump into that here in a second. But his size, at 182, this guy, and I'll go ahead and lump this next con in here as well. Barely functional strength. This guy, 4 reps of 2 1/4, man. Look, I can lift more than 4 reps of 2 1/4, man. Come on, bruh. I mean, 182, this guy, it looks like he's allergic to the weight room. Looks like he is in desperate need of a nutritional plan in Arizona. I mean, when you look at this guy, you're like, are you seriously a football player? He looks like a high school guy. So he definitely needs to get in the weight room. He definitely needs to eat more. He needs to put on some more weight. And he needs to get stronger, man. 4 reps of 2 1/4, that's ridiculous. As a defender, I mean, if you're an offensive guy, you're a speed guy, you're a defensive football player. Your job is to get other grown men on the ground. At 182, man, it's so hard to do because your job is to be physical at times. And he likes to come up and be aggressive. You can't be aggressive trying to jam somebody at the line of scrimmage. You're 182 pounds, man. So that barely functional strength, that's something that's got to change. And I talked about his eyes and being over-aggressive. That's the next con. He's an over-aggressive football player. There are times, there was one game against Ohio. He's in cover 3, and he's just sitting there flat-footed, boom. And he's watching the quarterback. His man running right by him. Had the quarterback gotten rid of the football earlier, quarterback's rolling out to his right, and if he'd have just let it go, he'd have had a walk-in touchdown from about 45 yards out, but he took an extra 2 steps and then chucked it, which allowed Harlan Miller to recover on the play and get back in the play and break it up. But if he would have just let it go, he would have had him wide open because he was just sitting there watching the quarterback. His man ran scot-free right past him. Would have been an easy 6, but the quarterback couldn't take advantage of it. Then I'm watching him again against Nickel State, and his eyes are just, like I said, they're going to get him in trouble. And he's over-aggressive. So what I mean by that is he's in cover 3 again, and, deeper than the deepest. Nothing cheap, nothing deep. Don't let anybody behind you in cover 3. And this guy's coming up, and he's squatting on routes. There's 2 receivers set to his side, and so you're looking at the route combination, and he's just running up to about 8 yards, and maybe he watched tape, and he saw the Nickel State offense, and he's seen tells, and he's able to know what's coming by watching tape. Maybe they have some tendencies and some things that he was able to break down and watching tape on these guys, but he would come up, he would be 10 yards off the ball, he'd come up to 7 and just squat and just stop. And now what if it was a deep route? One time it was a deeper route, quarterback didn't have the time to get the football off, so he didn't have to pay for it, but what if he would have had time to explore that 9 route up the seam, or up the sideline? I mean, he just came and he just squatted on the route and just stood there, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty ballsy. So I think he's a very over-aggressive guy that can have that be a detriment to him. We'll see if teams in the league are able to take advantage of that, and if that's something that stops Harlan Miller from potentially making this Arizona Cardinals roster. A level of competition, always something worth mentioning. Playing the Southland Conference, so it is what it is. I've already talked about that with Marquis Christian, that it's not something that's a deal breaker. Of course, if you're a talented football player, that's going to transcend wherever you play. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it is something worth mentioning, like I said before. But in the 6th round, 205th overall selection, Southeastern Louisiana cornerback Harlan Miller for me is a double. I see a lot of good traits, interesting traits with him, but I also see some things that could be a serious detriment to his game. And he's got to get stronger, man. I mean, that's ridiculous. 4 reps of 2 1/4. You look at him, and this guy's really frail. So I want to see this guy get stronger, more physical. I want to see him get a little bit bigger. And I want to see him be a little bit more aware of what's going on, be a little bit more responsible in coverage and do his job and not be so nosy as a guy looking just to make a play. But you look at the Cardinals draft overall, First round, Robert Kimdiche, home run. Third round, Brandon Williams, cornerback out of Texas A&M, double. Fourth round, center out of Missouri, Evan Bain, triple. So is the case for Marquis Christian, fifth round selection out of Midwestern State. Again, rare triple in the fifth round. Fifth round, Harvard tackle Cole Toner is a double. And rounding out the draft, cornerback out of Southeastern Louisiana, Harlan Miller, double as well. So you go to the scores: home run, 2 triples, 3 doubles, which nets you a doubles bonus. You divide, that gives you 18, which you divide by the 6 selections made by the Arizona Cardinals. It's a slide-in triple for the Arizona Cardinals. They had to go in head first, close play at the bag, but they're safe. It's a triple for the Arizona Cardinals in the 2016 NFL Draft. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it. Oh, here in the lab, we'll come back and join me as I continue to break down everything. And now, National Football League, come back and join me as I continue to break down every single team in the National Football League in the 2016 NFL Draft. Who's next? There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at In the Lab Room, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.